So,
Yeah, I met for breakfast with Pete and Dan today, and they mentioned we were coming to some sort of resolution on that.
yeah, there's several scenarios on it, so.
You know, you want a house, you're done.
All set, Mark?
Yep. You to come back.
Call to order, South Washington County Telecommunications Commission, May 25th, 2023, 7 PM commission meeting. We are at the City Cottage Grove Council Chambers. Public participation is available in person or via Zoom via the link on our website. Executive Director, roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Chair Bloom,
Here.
Vice Chair Date,
Here.
Treasurer Olson,
Here.
Secretary Downs,
Here.
Commission Director Olson,
Here.
Polta,
Here.
and Councilmember Ingeman.
Here.
Also in attendance, we have Council Mike Bradley, staff members Lonnie Garland, Damon Price, and Rich Mann, and myself, Mark.
So we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
Before we get to approval of agenda, I'd like to move item 7A above the reports, just below consent, which is the Harrington, Langer and Associates audit presentation, just to be conscious of our time. Can I get a motion to move it?
I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
In a second?
I'll set.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Session 3, approval of agenda. Motion to approve the full agenda.
Moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. Public comment? Seeing none, we will move on. Motion to approve consent agenda.
I'll move to approve its consent agenda.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Report.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce from Harrington, Langer and Associates, Anna Anderson, who conducted our 2022 audit this year.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioners, for having me here tonight. Again, I'm Anna Anderson from Harrington, Langer and Associates. Our firm performed the audit on the December 31st, 2022 financial statements. On the first few pages of the report, we have the independent auditor's report. The first or top section here lists our audit opinion. We have issued a clean, unmodified opinion, meaning the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects, and they're in accordance with accounting principles. Towards the bottom of this page, we have responsibilities of management for the financial statements. This report also lists our responsibilities for the financial statements and the audit. And then page 3, we have the some information on the required supplementary information that must go along with the report, as well as a paragraph on the internal controls report. The next section of the annual report is management's discussion and analysis. This is going to provide highlights of the organization, some key financial information, and also the operations during 2022 and 2021. The financial statements we're going to cover are prepared using the proprietary or enterprise fund accounting method, which is the same as private sector businesses, which means revenue is going to be recorded when earned and expenses are recorded when incurred. The few statements we're going to look at, we're going to start with the statement of net position. We're also going to look at the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position, as well as a statement of cash flows. On the top of page 5 here, we have the financial highlights. The commission had a net position of $3.4 million, of which $2.3 million represented the amount invested in capital assets. And as of December 31st, there was $1.4 million designated for capital equipment replacement. The commission's net position decreased $476,000 from the prior year, and this is attributable to higher than budgeted expenses. The chart here at the bottom of the page This is going to show comparative information for 22 and 2021. We start with the assets. Total assets decreased about $290,000 from the prior year, mainly due to purchase of equipment and also some depreciation. The change in deferred outflows is related to the para or pension plan. And then we have the liabilities of the organization. They increased about $371,000. Two main things there. There were some timing differences of when payments were made. And then we also had a new lease standard that had to be adopted during the year. So essentially what happens with that new lease standard is we're taking information that was previously in the footnotes of the organization that showed the liabilities for the building or space lease that used to be in the footnotes. Now accounting standards require it to be on the front page of the financial statements. So we book both an asset and a liability. So that's where we see the change there, and we'll cover that a little bit more later. The change in deferred inflows, again, that relates to the pension plan. And then the net position of the organization, as I mentioned, the total net position decreased about $476,000. But again, no cause for concern there. That's mainly due to the reimbursements to the member cities. And the commission actually has a very strong net position with significant liquid assets. Top of the next page shows us the changes in that position. You'll see revenues are fairly consistent actually with the prior year. Total revenues of just over 1.7 million for both years. And then the expenses of the organization, total expenses were just over $2.2 million, and that was an increase of about $535,000. If we take those revenues minus the expenses, we get that change in net position of a loss of $476,000. The bottom of the page details the major sources of revenue. Similar to prior years, it's mainly franchise fees paid as well as some PEG fees. And then expenses, your main expenses continue to be wages, benefits, occupancy, as well as franchise fee reimbursements and depreciation. And in 2022, the commission returned $667,000 to its member cities. Again, that's part of why you have that loss there as well. That wasn't originally budgeted for. Top of the page, the capital assets of the organization. Capital assets amounted to $2.3 million net of accumulated depreciation, and about $219,000 of new equipment and leasehold improvements were put into place. When we look at the actual financials versus the budget that you had, revenue was about $50,000 higher than expected. And again, those expenses were about $571,000 over budget due to the reimbursements to the member cities. Now we're going to look at the details. Again, just cover some highlights here. Total assets in the middle of the page. The commission had total assets of $4.3 million. And then as I mentioned with that new lease standard, there's a new item that you're going to see here, the right of use asset, about $92,000. And then under the liability section, we have a lease liability, the current portion. That's going to be the amount that you have to pay during 2023. And then the lease expires in 2024, and that's under the long-term portion, the $38,000. Total liabilities of the organization, just over $1 million. And again, that total net position, $3.4 million. The next statement is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. You can see the revenue items there as well as the operating expenses. The revenue minus expenses is your operating loss, so about $526,000. And then you had some non-operating revenue, leading to that change in net position of $476,000. If we back out the member city franchise fee reimbursements of $667,000, it costs the organization about $130,000 a month to operate. So when we take that number into the net assets that you have about $8.5 months of reserves. So again, really strong position and a very healthy balance. On page 10, we see the statement of cash flows. This provides details on the reduction in cash and cash and investments. Your cash provided by operations is about $9,000. And then we had that purchase of property and equipment of $219,000, some interest income, leading to that net change of $191,000. Any questions before we go on to the footnotes?
Thank you. You're actually right where I was going to ask a question, which is cash position page. So part of the audit, I'm sure, had to do with, the various asset buckets that that the organization enjoys, and cash is one of those buckets. And my question to you is, did you have any conversation or any thoughts about the way in which that cash is being utilized relative to investments or anything along those lines? A lot of different ways to use cash to your benefit. One way is to just buy down debt or buy equipment with cash so you don't have to, take out a loan or anything like that. But then there's also the investment opportunity to let that cash work for you. And I just wondered if you had any recommendations or thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yes, we didn't have any specific conversations on the investment of cash. I know the market right now is really good. You're seeing high interest rates. That's not part of our audit, though, to give those management decisions. But that would definitely be something that you as a commission could look at, possibly investing some of those funds in different vehicles as well, as long as they are fully insured. That's the one thing that you need to make sure of.
Thank you.
So next we have the notes to financial statements. Note 1 describes the commission as well as its major policies. It contains definitions and required language. So I'm actually going to scroll ahead here to page 14. This page is going to talk about that new lease standard that went into place. It describes your lease liabilities as well as that right of use asset that we had to book. Again, this is a new accounting standard that had to be adopted during the year. Everything has been posted and recorded, and no other issues were found with that. And both the asset and the liability are going to be reduced as you're making those monthly rent payments as well. All right, on to the deposits. As you just asked, all of the funds that you have are fully insured as required by state statute. And the commission's investments at December 31st included almost $1.4 million invested in the 4M fund. Note 3 shows the capital assets of the commission. Shows the additions, and then there were also some disposals during the year. Note 4 is rather lengthy. It spans pages 16 through 21. It details the multiple employer defined pension plan administered by Public Employees Retirement Association, or PERA. And all of the costs and numbers in this footnote are actuarially determined. Scroll down here to page 17. The commission's contributions to the fund for 2022 were $38,383, and they were equal to the required contributions as set by state statute. Bottom of this page, it tells us that the commission recognized pension expense of just over $77,000. Then I'm going to scroll ahead to page 22. The next note I want to cover, note 5, borrowing arrangements. The commission has a credit card account which you can borrow up to $54,200. And at December 31st, this card had a balance of about $2,400 and was included in accounts payable. Note 6, board designated unrestricted net position. You have designated $1.4 million for the future replacement of capital equipment. And then note 7 provides details on those franchise fee reimbursements. The city of Woodbury was just over $444,000 and $222,000 was returned to the city of Cottage Grove. And then note 8, the commitment footnote. This is in a new format, again, dealing with those leases. It shows that the office space was about $55,000 and built in there was some interest of about $3,800 for total expense of $59,000. I'm going to skip ahead past the remaining footnotes and the budgetary supplementary information and go to page 29, the internal controls report. So as part of our audit, we had a report on the internal control over financial reporting and on compliance. And during our audit, we found the same 2 deficiencies in internal controls that we've had in the previous years. We did not find any issues in instances of non-compliance. So we're going to look at our schedule of findings on page 31. This lists the 2 internal control deficiencies. The first one is the lack of segregation of duties. It's a common condition to organizations of your size due to the limited number of office personnel. And with this, you may not be able to prevent or detect errors and irregularities. So what we ask of management and you as the Board of Commissioners is that you continue to provide oversight and review policies, procedures, and the financial statements on a regular basis. The second finding is related to the financial reporting process. Again, similar to other organizations of your size, you've asked that us, the auditors, prepare these financial statements and put them in this format based on information provided by management. Again, we just ask that you continue to provide oversight and look at the financials on a regular basis as well. Any questions on the footnotes before we look at the management letter? Okay. The management letter is required communications in regard to our audit. Under significant audit matters, the only thing to point out here is described in note 1 to the financial statements. The commission has adopted the new lease standard and all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. The last paragraph on this page just talks about the pension plan and the estimates that are included in those calculations by the actuary. Top of the next page, I'm happy to report there were no difficulties in performing our audit. We had no non-standard journal entries or adjustments, and we also did not have any disagreements with management. The bottom of the page here, we had no other audit issues or findings. Are there any questions on this document? All right, well then this concludes my presentation on the annual report. Thank you, commissioners, for having me here tonight. Thank you to Mark and his staff for their assistance with the audit and making this a really smooth process for us.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Accept it, right? Okay. So I guess we need to have a motion to accept the audit.
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The audit is accepted. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you.
Next thing on the agenda are reports. Mr. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission Directors. to begin with the Executive Director report for May. We'll try to quickly go through this, but I do want to point out some significant areas of progress here. First, with the franchise renewal. Our attorney and I have been in contact with Comcast recently, and they have recognized that they have the ball in their court, if you will, and are working on a red line on our current draft, so we should hear from them again soon. I did also want to, as I mentioned at the executive committee meeting last month or earlier this month, that the Autism Awareness Acceptance Month project video series went off really well. Initiated by Councilmember Olson. Thank you so much, Councilmember Olson. And we worked with Shaletta Brundage and Kate Swenson. Shaletta from Cottage Grove, Kate Swenson from the city of Woodbury, who are advocates and influencers in the autism community and nationally known. And it was a pleasure to work with them. We look forward to sharing that work again in the future. We just heard from Harrington, Langer and Associates on our financial audit for 2022. Thank you for accepting that. I just wanted to mention again one last time that I did meet with the HR committee back in March. We do have a recommended salary budget adjustment to review this evening. And also met with the Relocation Committee a couple times in the month of April. What I can say is that we have received a draft letter of intent from the city of Woodbury. And late this afternoon, I did receive some additional information that will enable us to convene the Relocation Committee again next week to begin working towards bringing it to this body. I do want to give you a heads up that we may need to call a special meeting at some point in June to look at it as a group, but we'll let you know as we get there. And finally, I would like to it's not analyze this document here, this spreadsheet with our bookkeeper. So I did want to point out Q1 revenue is just slightly higher than budgeted, pretty much right on track. Just slightly over $415,000 for Q1. And expenses, we are slightly below expenses for Q1. Any questions on that or my report? We are planning on hopefully looking at a budget amendment this evening. So if that gets approved, I can revise this document, this spreadsheet, and send it out to everybody.
Any questions? Thanks, Mark.
Mm-hmm. Next up, unfortunately, our content manager was unable to be here this evening, so I'm going to just move forward with her report. Point out a couple items in our report that's included in the packet, which is that staff was at this year's Cottage Grove Community Showcase on April 29th at the Park High School Activity Center, where, according to the Chamber of Commerce, over 600 people were in attendance, and we were able to share with the attendees aspects of our organization and what we do, and gain some feedback as to how folks are aware of us or watch our channels, so that was good to hear. We are planning a 40th anniversary celebration later in August. More details on that to come. But the vision for staff and myself is that we will have a open house event on a weekday night, a Tuesday night, And working with Junction 70, we'll have, and other partners in our retail space, hopefully have a couple food trucks, maybe a band, and have a big celebration. And then what's not included in the report, but I did want to mention that Ann Schweisguth, our content manager, recently received a first award in the Alliance for Community Media's Hometown Media Award. Those will be presented in Brooklyn at the end of June at the conference there. She won first place for her Lego budget video for the city of Woodbury. And she also took the Silver Telly Award, which is Excellence in Video and TV across all screens. So congratulations to Ann. We will be putting out a press release on that, and so you'll probably see some more information on our social media channels. With that, I'd like to hand it over to our technology manager, Lonnie Garland.
Thank you, sir. Chair, Commission, good evening. It's a beautiful night. Are we excited about the long weekend, I hope? I am. I'm really excited because we're doing a live event, excuse me, on Memorial Day from Woodbury's City Hall or in that area. And we've tested and I don't know how many times we've tested. And today we got the drone to do a live broadcast. So we have the drone able to send a live signal to our live broadcast now. So hopefully, if fingers crossed, I'm going to brag this up and then hopefully it goes like it's supposed to. But hopefully we'll have a live drone shot of that event to start the event off. They're actually having a B-25 bomber do a low flyover before the event starts. So we got to be not in the air for that, but it should be pretty entertaining. So we're excited. We're doing more, I think, more live events in the next 2 weeks than we have all year. We're doing Woodbury's Memorial Day. We're doing the graduation for the District 833. So we're doing all 3 schools on one day. And then we're also doing a live Facebook Cottage Grove paramedics CPR training in our studio the following week. So it's like, what is it, Monday, Sunday, and Wednesday. So it's just like one right after the other. So we've been really, our office is messier than normal because we got equipment laying everywhere, testing everything. So, but we're excited about it. Doing live events is exciting anyway. And the more we get to do, I think it helps get our eye out in the community a little bit more, and people recognize us. So that's nice to do. I like doing that. Other than that, everything else I have is in the packet. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. All right, have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry, I should do that, shouldn't I? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, sorry. All right. I'll come back and you have to look at me some more. All right, so our IT specialist, Damon Price, was able to attend NAB this year. So he went out to Vegas. This was his first time in Vegas and his first time at an NAB conference. So he put together a little presentation for us. So I'll let Damon explain his trip.
Good evening, Chair and Directors. Just stick with me 1 second while I get my computer going here. Okay, so like Lonnie was saying, I had the opportunity to attend the National Association of Broadcasters Conference in Las Vegas. My first time attending. We like to attend these things so that we can stay on top of technology trends and any new technologies that might help us to streamline our operations, serve our cities better, possibly do things at lower cost sometimes. So my computer jumped right into it. We had a couple of products that we wanted to specifically check out and talk directly to the manufacturers of. And the first one, this one is pretty esoteric technology-wise. This is a frame synchronizer, which allows us to make sure that any signals that we're sending to the cable company are within the cable company's extremely specific specifications. And what we've been running into is some of our frame synchronizer units are somewhat old, and they don't really cooperate very well with the modern closed captioning technology. So one of the things that we're in the process of doing right now is making sure that our entire signal chain is compatible with closed captioning to comply with the rules that are in place moving forward for closed captioning. So this is a card frame card that fits in some of our existing equipment that'll allow us to upgrade some of our frame synchronization equipment and actually make it a much smaller footprint. Just reduce our electricity consumption and our heat output by replacing big rack units with smaller cards like this. So I was able to talk to some of their representatives, and this new updated card will pass the closed captioning data without messing with any of that data stream. So another thing that I checked out while I was there was the Sony Venice camera system. And what makes this camera system special is the camera sensor, which you can see on the picture on the left, actually detaches from the camera body so that you can put the camera sensor into tighter spaces. And what this camera system is famous for is it was the primary camera system that was used to shoot the Top Gun movie. I was able to fit several of these sensors into the tight confines of the aircraft when they were shooting in it. The new Top Gun. Yeah. So here's another shot. This is an 8K version of the camera. And I was unfortunately unable to get anybody to tell me how much this thing costs. So the sky's the limit on this one. This was another cool gizmo they had. This was a camera on a motorized dolly that was just driving back and forth and getting shots. So one thing we've been looking for our producers is a body-worn gimbal system, because we have handheld gimbals right now, and they tend to get heavy, and they're a little tough to use. Your hands are tied up. Your hands aren't free when you're holding onto those. So this is a system where you wear the vest, and then it has an arm that comes out and holds the gimbal. It's the tilt-to-float system. And here's just a little bit better breakdown so you can see what that sort of system looks like. So something that's relatively cost effective. So another avenue that we've been exploring is doing color correction in-house. And this is a part of the video production process at the end before the content is published. It will go through this color grading process where you use extremely accurate monitors that truly represent the colors of the video. So it's kind of the last quality assurance check before any sort of movie or film goes out. So we've been doing it on a limited scale, but we've been looking at getting a true color grading monitor. So that's another thing that we wanted to check out while I was visiting there. So these are our two examples from Flanders Scientific. And here are two more from ISO. And you can see the significant cost difference from the left to the right, with the one on the right being just kind of like a normal contrast ratio, and the one on the left being what's referred to as HDR, or high dynamic range. The pictures don't really do it justice. Obviously, just through a camera, you can't really see what the real resolution difference is. But the one on the left is something like you would use to finalize movies, high definition 4K content. So this is the newest color mastering monitor from Sony. I was unable, again, to get anybody to tell me how much this thing costs, so probably $35,000 to $40,000. But this is like the type of equipment that they would be doing like professional cinema with. So probably not something we're going to have at the office anytime soon, but it was fun to see. So this is the type of gear that we would probably use in certain applications. On the left, you have a PTZ, pan tilt zoom camera, which is actually what is in here to televise these meetings. This is the new flagship from a company called Bird Dog. On the right, you have just like a regular block camera, like for like fixed camera applications. This is a NDI over Wi-Fi. An NDI is a video over IP format that we've been starting to use more. Actually, the new Newport control room and camera setup is all NDI. And what it allows us to do is access the video feeds over the network from any network location. So it really streamlines being able to remotely control meetings and take the video content and stream it out to anywhere on our network. It's a very cost-effective way to do it compared to the old SDI distribution methods. And this is pretty cutting edge because they've got a product that does it over Wi-Fi. This is another interesting card frame. This allows you to build NDI input and output capability into, kind of existing video infrastructure. In our case, we use these card frames. So this would be an interesting a piece that I could possibly see us using in the future. And one of the reasons that I went is they offered a UAS drone night flight workshop. So I attended that on the first night. They had a classroom portion, and they took us out to an art installation called Seven Magic Mountains. We did some drone flying out there when the sun went down, so there's a couple shots from the location. And if you look closely on the picture on the right, you can see a couple drones flying around. And there's some up close of the art installation. I volunteered to go help break down the lights, so I got up close and was able to take some pictures before we actually took the lights down. So things are about 30 feet tall. I think one of the points of the demonstration is that with something like this, it's really hard to get an idea of the scale because there's nothing really to compare it to. It's just some rocks out in the desert. When you see somebody stand next to it, they are pretty tall. So this is an example of like a storage server. We use some of this company's equipment at our SWCTC office for content storage. Here is a couple examples of sets that are using LED video walls as opposed to green walls or key walls or fixed sets. So if you look really close, that is an LED video wall with a 90-degree angle in the corner there. Here's an even more convincing one. This actually the floor is a LED wall as well. So this guy is, everything you see around this guy is just LED and video generated. So we're not quite there yet, but there are facilities even in the Twin Cities area that are going to a video wall backdrop like this, just to simplify their studio backgrounds. Here's a camera crane that I thought was pretty cool in a car. I don't know if we're going to be sticking one of these on the van anytime soon, but we know where to get it if we need it. These are really cool. This is a machine that's used to capture cinema film reels to digital formats. So if you had old movies that you wanted to, put on Netflix, this is where it would start. You'd put the reels in this and make it into a digital file. This is a unit that we're actually interested in. As we do more live events, one of the things we want to do is be able to stream directly from live locations. And this is a bonded cellular mobile encoder. This would actually go right on the camera between the battery and the camera. It has a couple SIM cards in it. And its real strength is that it can take multiple network connections and treat them as one. So if you have a couple of, say, two OK connections, it can bind them together and make them one more powerful connection, for a more reliable transmission. So it's a new product by a company named Hayvision, who we already use some of their products in our encoders and decoders here for transmission from the cities back to the office. So this is a pretty interesting piece. also very specialized to the video production world. This is a media asset management server system by a company called Studio Network Solutions. And this is similar to kind of the servers that we have now, but this is set up in a way that multiple users, or in our case, all of our video producers, could share content and share projects. So long story short, basically the producers would go out and film, dump all their content back into this, tag the content, and then any one of the users could access the content with the tagging system, just a simple search for, say, hey, Cottage Grove, or, the Cable Commission. They can get all the content, and then they can work on projects concurrently without having to make redundant copies of the projects. So say, the example that this company uses is like sports games. Like they'll film the game on site. The people, the producers will have to travel back home from, say, the away game. They can download a proxy project with this system, work on it, say, on the flight, and then when they land, as soon as they hook back up to the internet, it auto updates the system, and then the other producers can work on the same project. So it's really a media streamlining system. This is something we were looking at during the pandemic to facilitate people working from home and working collaboratively on projects. And this may be something that we pursue after the move. So it's been on our radar, may happen down the road a little bit. And then one more cool thing, we got to ride in the Las Vegas Loop, where they have drilled tunnels. This is under the convention center, so you can get from one side of the convention center to the other. Instead of a 40-minute walk, it's like a 5-minute drive. So you just walk down into the station, it's totally free. The Teslas pull up and you just tell them where you want to go. If you're going to the West Hall, I think it has one additional leg that goes down to one of the casinos. But it was really cool. And that concludes my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
No, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of great technology. We're always looking at improvements and efficiencies. Something like the harness that Damon showed, that's also something that we're interested in because we want to mitigate risk and, things, injury or workman's comp issues, things like those harnesses really help the producers with their work. So, yeah. Okay. On to
For legal?
Yeah.
And legal, Mr. Bradley.
All right, you saved the best for last, I guess, of the reports. Well, good evening, everybody. Just a couple of things. One is my report is in the packet. Secondly, I just want to highlight a couple of things. One is Senate File 3039 and House File 3261. And that is legislation that was introduced this last session. In the Senate, Senator Nicole Mitchell from Woodbury was the author of this bill. Representative Mike Freeberg from Golden Valley was the author in the House. And what this legislation would do would be to create a tax on digital products that would be used exclusively for municipal entities operating access channels for the creation of digital media. And with the trends that we're seeing nationwide on franchise fees and PEG fees, funding bills like this are incredibly important for access organizations to continue operating throughout Minnesota. This is a bill that would not only make up the gap in funding that we're currently seeing, but we think it would be of a statewide benefit that would allow cities and joint powers commissions throughout the state to create video content and bring government to people all across the state. So if and when you're talking to folks that are at the League of Minnesota Cities and Metro Cities, and of course your legislators, if you're in Woodbury, please thank Senator Mitchell for her support of this bill. But yes, please mention this and encourage those organizations to make it a priority for the next session. These bills were introduced late in the session, so they did not receive a hearing. But we do expect them to receive a hearing come the next session. I did want to bring your attention to some federal legislation, H.R. 3557. This is a very negative bill for local governments. It would allow cable operators to modify franchises, and it would prohibit municipalities from ever revoking franchises. That's actually in your, that authority is in your current franchise, and should be in your current franchise, and should be in every franchise across the country. This bill was heard this week, actually, already. And it's my understanding it passed out of committee. So that's in the House of Representatives. And, I don't know if it's going to pass the House, but I think what I'm hearing is it has a good chance of passing the House. So it's a concerning bill. Representative Angie Craig was on that committee. I know people from local governments contacted Representative Craig. And she voted against the bill in committee. But I wanted to bring that to your attention so you're at least aware of the bill. We'll be giving more information on that bill in our next legal report, so in your next packet for the executive committee. As Mark said, renewal, we did follow up with Comcast. We've been waiting for several weeks from Comcast, and they did indicate that they would be getting something to us hopefully soon. And then finally on the relocation, unfortunately we didn't get the letter of intent until fairly recently, and even when we did get it, it was missing information. So that's delayed the project a little bit. But Mark and I are going to be getting together next week to start that review. And our hope is to get back to Woodbury, assuming we have all the information that we need, and then just work through issues with the city. And once that's ready, where we feel we have something that the relocation committee, we either need their input or approval, then we'll bring that, we'll call a meeting and make that happen. And that's my report. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Oh, thank you.
All right.
Moving on, I think we're on to unfinished business. Proposed budget amendment. Mr. Executive Director.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commission Directors. As we reviewed at the Executive Committee meeting, myself and the HR Committee would like to propose an amendment to the budget, and the Executive Committee has agreed to recommend that to the full Commission. As we have implemented SWCTC's new compensation philosophy and changes to our employee handbook, I've met with staff to get their input, and we've reached consensus agreement about the philosophy. It will be added to the handbook, and as part of that, I have recommended to the HR Committee that we do a merit increase for 2023 that would be retroactive to January 1st. This would impact the budget by increasing the wages line item by $29,579.86, with a taxes increase of $4,000, para increase of $4,000, and I have offset some of that increase with reductions in other line items under payroll. So the net payroll expense increase that I'm asking for approval on is $24,097.86. And as I mentioned, The executive committee recommends approval of the budget amendment in this area of payroll expenses at this meeting. Any questions?
No discussion? Oh, I think we need just a motion to approve the proposed budget amendment that Mark just stated.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you.
New business. Anything? No? Any comments, commission comments and requests? Anyone? Good. Hear a motion to adjourn then.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.